Well, hello and welcome to the Hammond Iles Financial Power Hour. Today, we're going to discuss money basics, the important things we all need to know. My name is Greg Hammond, CEO of Hammond Iles Wealth Advisors, and on behalf of our entire team, I want to welcome you here. As we wrap up March Madness, I am reminded of a quote from Michael Jordan that says, "Winners don't just learn the fundamentals, they master them." You have to monitor your fundamentals constantly because the only thing that changes will be your attention to them. So whether you're an experienced investor or you're relatively new to investing or somewhere in between, you are in the right place. Some might think that money basics is beyond them, but it's important that we all revisit and remind ourselves about the money basics and pay attention to those fundamentals. So today we're going to cover those important things that we all need to know. Now, to start off, just a little bit of our legal disclosures. Hammond Iles Wealth Advisors is an independent registered investment advisor. We do not provide legal or tax advice. So we always highly recommend that you check with your tax consultant or advisor to be able to implement anything related tax-wise. So let's talk a little bit about money basics. And certainly along the way, questions are always encouraged. And you'll find the question and answer section at the bottom of your screen, or you can type it in through the chat. And if for some reason you're not able to share your question, or as many times happens after our gathering today, you have a question that pops into mind, you can always email your questions to hello@hiwealth.com. So let's get started. Money basics. And let's talk about the things and the fundamentals that we need to build the foundation of our financial future on. The first is building what I refer to as a peace of mind account. Many refer to it as an emergency savings account. I call it peace of mind because when that next unexpected expenditure comes up, you will have the peace of mind knowing that you have money set aside in a secure savings account that's ready and able to cover that expense. And if you're just starting out, typically the initial target for that is around $1,000 to get that covered for any kind of unexpected expenditure. And just as a little side note, this may actually make you smarter. Studies have shown that financial stress can actually lower your IQ. So by putting a peace of mind account in place, you can actually potentially become smarter. Now, once you have that $1,000 in there, then you can grow that to typically include 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses. So whatever you spend on a monthly basis, and if you're not certain what that amount will be, pull out a couple months of your credit card statements and just take a look at the bills that you pay on a regular basis, as well as your bank statements. So ideally, then you want to build that up to 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses. Now, there also is what I call kind of that SWAN number, your ability to sleep well at night. So you may want to have a little bit more than 3 to 6 months worth or a little less. Each individual has a number that they just have in their head that says, I need to see that bank statement show X dollars. And when it does, I have peace of mind and I'm able to sleep well at night. So whatever that amount might be for you, that should be what your peace of mind account should be. Now, one of the things that I think is extremely important right now, especially since we're facing inflation, as well as we have higher interest rates, is make sure your money is working for you. It's important to have your peace of mind account somewhere where it's accessible and liquid, but at the same time, you should be looking at having it generate enough interest for you, whether that's in a high yield savings account or in a certificate of deposit. there are higher interest rates than just sitting in your checking account. So I encourage you to make sure that that money that you have set aside for your peace of mind is not only providing that swan effect, but it's also contributing to your financial future by earning some reasonable interest. If you're not sure where to turn to look for that interest or would like some guidance, please don't hesitate to contact our office or go to our website where you can click and schedule a quick 15-minute conversation with a financial coach, and we'll be happy to point you in the right direction. It's also important to use credit wisely. I think that credit, although some use it in saying, hey, you shouldn't have any credit, I disagree with that. I think that there are wise ways to use credit and that we should utilize it to our advantage. That we only want to spend on credit what we're able to pay off on a monthly basis. But at the same time, you can have the benefit of having the float in that you basically charge something today, but it's not due or payable until the cutoff of your credit card statement. So you have that period of time where your money is still in, hopefully a high yield savings account, earning some interest for you before you pay it off. Also, when it comes to credit, it would be wise to also look for cards that offer benefits to you. Is it cash back, or do you want to accumulate points for travel? If you are looking to travel, make sure that the credit card that you use has no foreign transaction fees. So if you happen to travel outside the continental US, you won't have a transaction fee when you use that credit card. Ideally, you want to find a card that has no annual fee, but there are some out there that offer benefits where the benefit is greater than the annual fee. And I'll give you just one example. I have a Starbucks credit card. It has an annual fee of $48, but part of the benefit of being a credit card holder is I get a free drink every month. Well, if I use that every month, the amount of the free drinks, the value of that is higher than the annual fee that I pay. So in that case, the benefit of having that, as well as some other benefits of the card, outweigh the annual fee. So if you do have a credit card that has an annual fee, make sure you're gaining benefits that outweigh that. Now, if you do have some credit card debt or student debt or other debt that you've accumulated, it will be important to pay that down. That you want to focus on the part of your debt that has the highest interest rate. And certainly if you have any credit card debt that you're carrying month to month, that most likely has a double-digit interest rate, and you'll want to get that paid off. It doesn't make financial sense to be saving money or even putting money in your emergency savings account where you're earning a single-digit interest rate when you're paying double-digit interest on your credit card. So focus on paying those down and get that taken care of. Now, part of Money Basics is also focusing on budgets. I know many individuals don't budget. We just kind of fly by the seat of the pants and see what's left over at the end of the month. But it's important to create some parameters on what we spend. It's key to our financial future. And one way of doing that is by looking at what is called the 50-30-20 rule. And so I'd like to just share a little bit about this rule and how it can provide a framework or a guideline for you for your budget. So on a monthly basis, 50% of what you bring home in your take-home pay from your employment or wherever you work, for you or your spouse or your family, should go towards your needs, which include your rent or your housing, utilities, groceries, transportation, insurance, all those things that are a need. And it's important as we look at things that we distinct between needs, wants, and wishes. And so the 50% focuses on those things that you must have or needs. And as part of that, ideally, you'd want to maintain the cost of your housing, whether that's a mortgage payment or a rent payment, to be no more than 30% of your take-home pay. Now, I know right now rents are going up, interest rates on mortgages are going up, and that may be tough to stay within that 30%. But if you go over it, please try to stay relatively close to it, or with anticipation that hopefully an upcoming raise or increase in income may get you back under that 30%. Now, speaking of 30%, the next is for those wants. Clothes, eating out, activities, your charitable donations, things that you want to do and want to have, but aren't absolutely necessary. So that should be no more than around 30%. And then ideally, you would be carving off 20% for savings and paying down any debt. Now, keep in mind that when I talk about savings, this isn't just putting money into an investment account or building up that peace of mind account that we talked about. It also includes your contributions to your employer retirement account. So if you're already saving 10% of your income to your 401k or 403b through your employer, that counts towards this 20%. So ideally, to have a very strong financial future, if you can live within 80% of your take-home pay, you'll have a very strong financial path going forward. Now, as you build that financial path, I just want to take a moment to talk a little bit about some charitable giving, because there are opportunities here to actually save you money while you're giving some away. So one of the things that most people think of when charitable giving is, well, I'm just going to Venmo them, I'm going to send a check, I'm just going to transfer money as cash. But one of the things that is often missed is giving appreciated assets. So whether that's an investment like a stock or a mutual fund that has grown over the years or appreciated, or it may actually be property that has appreciated. There are a lot of different assets that grow. Give that to the charity instead of cash. And if you have shares of that one stock or investment that you really love and you don't want to give it up, give the shares of the investment to the charity and then use your cash that you would have given to buy the investment back. And I'll explain why that is. So when you give a charitable organization an appreciated asset, you get a charitable deduction, if you itemize your taxes, of the full market value of that investment. So let's say that I bought an investment for $100 and it appreciates up to $200. Now, if I sell it outright, I get $200, but I have to pay capital gains tax on the difference between what I paid and what I sold it for. So basically that $100 difference. Now, if I gift that same $200 investment to a charity, I don't pay tax on that $100 appreciation, but I get the credit for the full $200 charitable donation. So it allows me to avoid the capital gains tax on that investment. Now, I mentioned that if I really love that investment and I want it back, I could take $200 that I would have written the check for and buy that investment back. Now, what that does, though, is my cost basis, rather than being down at $100, is now up at $200. So I've reduced the amount of unrealized capital gains that I may pay tax on in the future. Now, one other overlooked thing is if you're over the age of 70 and a half, you need to be aware of what's called a qualified charitable distribution. For individuals over the age of 70 and a half, you're able to gift up to $100,000 per year from an IRA to a charity. And when it goes out of the IRA, there's no tax on it, where normally a distribution from your IRA would be taxable income. Giving to a charity, it's not reported as taxable income. And if you're over the age where you're required to start taking minimum distributions, you get a 2-for-1 here, and that your qualified charitable distribution also counts towards your minimum distribution. So you're able to give to that charity with pre-tax money rather than paying out of your checking account with after-tax money. So be aware that there are ways to give to charity and be more tax efficient. It's also important to plan your estate in that it makes sense that in order to, again, maximize the benefit to you and your family members, leave your after-tax or non-taxable assets like a Roth IRA to your family and leave your retirement funds or part of your retirement funds to charity. Those are the ones that whether you take the money out or your family members will pay tax on it. Why not give it to charity if you're inclined to do so and avoid the income tax on it? Also, you can do that just by naming the charity or multiple charities as the beneficiary on a retirement account. And that doesn't have to be for your entire retirement account. I actually have a small SEP IRA that I have from some self-employment that I had years ago, and I've designated 5 charities on that IRA. So it'll grow over time, and I know that that account will pass on and make a legacy impact on the organizations. Now, I encourage you to think about also on how you and when you make your charitable donations. Most individuals now utilize a standard deduction. So a charitable deduction doesn't normally have an income tax consequence because if you're using the standard deduction, no matter what you give to charity, it doesn't matter unless, of course, you're giving enough that you're exceeding the standard deduction. But if you're not, consider bunching your gifts where you consolidate charitable giving in a single tax year so that you exceed the standard deduction amount for that year. And then you can go back to the standard deduction in other years. And the way that you can do that or facilitate it rather than giving 3 years of gifts in just a single year is you can use what's called a donor advised fund, where you can make a gift into a fund that holds it, and then you can give it out as you want or desire over a number of years. There's no requirement as to how much has to come out each year. And once in the donor advised fund, it can be invested and can actually grow over time, but you get a full charitable deduction of the amount that you transfer into that fund when you do that. And if you have any questions about these or any other things, please don't hesitate to contact a financial coach at Hammond Iles. We'll be happy to take a look at what you want to accomplish and the best way of doing it. It's why I subscribe to a process called Dream, Plan, and Give. Before looking at kind of what should I give or whatever, just dream big. What is the impact that you want to have during your lifetime or even beyond your lifetime? Giving to charity does not have to reduce the amount that you leave to your family members. Instead of thinking of a pie where you're carving off a piece to charity that leaves less to family, you can actually use these strategies that pay less in taxes and grow that pie bigger so you end up giving to charity and leaving more to your family members. So I hope that if that is of interest to you, you reach out to us and we'll be happy to have a conversation around that. Now, here are some things to pay attention to on building wealth. So we've tackled that peace of mind account. We have got our let me say that again. We've gotten our charitable donations organized so that we're tax efficient in doing that, making sure that we're making the most of the impact we want to have. Now, one of the things that I'm seeing very often, especially in times where individuals are concerned about uncertainty in the future, whether you're concerned about whoever is in the White House, what party is in charge of Congress, or what's going on in the world, many individuals have a tendency to hold too much cash in that peace of mind account. It allows you to sleep well at night, but you're silently losing value to inflation. And here's just some examples. A single family home back in 1991, the average cost was $97,000. It was up to 376,000 by 2019 in basically a 20-year period. Just the loaf of bread, although if we updated these statistics now, it would be probably substantially more, $1.26 in 2019. And the cost of college education. If you're a parent of young children, it's amazing how the cost of education far exceeds the increase of just average inflation. So by having too much money as cash, even if you're earning some interest on that, if it's not keeping up with inflation, those dollars in your bank account are actually losing value and their purchase power is not as strong. So it's important to make sure that you have your money working for you and that you're growing and outpacing inflation wherever possible. Now, if you're starting to look ahead at retirement, this is also an area to really pay attention to inflation, trying to come up with that number. What is the amount that I need to have saved for retirement? And it's important to know that if you live on $50,000 a year now, that you can see that at a 2% inflation rate in just 10 years, you'll need $61,000. In 20 years, $74,000. In 35 years, $100,000. And if we increase the inflation to 3, 4, and even now it's currently around 5%, you can see that dramatically increases the amount of income that you need in retirement. So this is one of the biggest challenges to planning retirement, is making sure that you've accumulated enough retirement savings to provide the level of income you want to have. And if for your retirement you have not taken the time to stop and calculate this, please give us a call and we'll be happy to talk to you about how we can put a financial plan in place to run these numbers, whether it's early on in your savings to just get a ballpark of that future, or whether you're approaching that hopeful retirement date coming up. Because it's so important to save early and save often. It was advice that was given to me by my dad. And I love this example about the power of compounding in a book called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. I highly recommend it. I frequently give it away, and it talks about how small decisions in your life can compound and have tremendous impact. And so if I were to ask you this question, would you like $3 million? I'll just write you a check, $3 million, here you go. Or I give you a magic penny that will double in value every day for 1 month. And that's a 31-day month, by the way, not February. So which would you choose? The $3 million up front or the magic penny? Well, you may be thinking that the $3 million is a sure bet. Maybe I should use that. Well, when we take a look at how that works out, what we find here is, by the first and second day, your penny's gone to 2 cents to 4 cents. By day 3, we're now at 8 cents. By day 10, hey, you're up to $5.12. You're really moving along. And by day 20, you're almost 3 weeks into the month. You're a little over $5,000. You may be scratching your head saying, well, maybe I should have taken that $3 million. But by day 25, you're jumping up to 167,000. And this shows where the time that you have with compounding, it just compounds, and really makes a difference. By day 29, you're getting close to that 3 million, just shy of $2.7 million. And by day 31, it is now doubled again, and it's now worth 10.7 million. So now you're not too sad that you took that magic penny. The power of compounding has tremendous benefit for all of us to be invested and allow it to grow and compound over time. And I'd like to share just an example with you of 3 friends that started out with different saving strategies. Here's Aiden. He starts right out of the gate at 25, shortly after graduating from college. he starts socking away $100 a week or $400 a month, and it's in an investment account growing at 8%. But, after 10 years, he says, well, I have a family now, I have other expenses, and he stops. So he put in for 10 years, basically $48,000, and he just lets it grow till he retires at 65. And what he finds is that $48,000 that he put in early grew to almost $730,000. Not too bad. That's a substantial growth. But James, his partner, he likes to have a good time early out, and so he doesn't save. But when he gets to 35, he realizes that now he needs to kind of kick it into gear. So he starts saving the same $400 per month, growing at the same average 8% per year. But because he's starting late, he contributes all the way up to 65 for 30 years. So where Aiden only did 10 years, he's starting late and doing for 30, and he only ends up with $567,000 at age 65. So you can see that getting that money in earlier and allowing it to compound can have a dramatic impact. Now, their other friend, Sarah, and by the way, women tend to be smarter investors, a little bit less emotion and a little bit less egocentric on their stock and investing trades. But Sarah, she starts at 25 and she just keeps steady at saving $400 a month all the way through age 65. And so just by saving that $100 a week, never increasing it over that 40-year time frame, she's able to save up just under $1.3 million by age 65. So the important lesson beyond starting early and saving often is that our financial independence is really our own choice. When it comes to budgeting, when it comes to saving, all of it is within our grasp. We just have to make the right choices focused on the money basics. So here are some strategies for you to build wealth, no matter where you are in your financial path towards retirement, or even in retirement, is that you want to make sure that you pay yourself first. Many times when it comes to saving, whether it's saving for an expenditure, a trip, or something in the future, or whether you're saving for retirement, it's easy to allow that to just wait till the end of the month to see what's left over. But it's important that you prioritize yourself or the experience or thing that you want to have and pay yourself first. So at the very beginning of the month, put that money aside so that you're saving for that item. The second is take advantage of your employer retirement accounts. If you're working and your employer offers a 401k or 403b, make sure that you're contributing at least the amount to get the full match of your employer. So if your employer offers 100% up to 4% of your income, make sure you're saving at least 4%. If it's 50% of up to 6%, make sure you're putting away at least 6%. And as you have raises over the year, I encourage you to look at bumping up that percentage each year. It'll be to your benefit, and you won't miss it if you're already living within your means, within your current take-home pay. And I can't say this enough, but I believe everyone should have a Roth IRA. So if you're eligible, you should contribute. For this year, 2023, you can contribute, if you're under the age of 50, up to $6,500. And if you're over the age of 50, you can contribute up to $7,500. Now, there are limitations based on income, so make sure that you are eligible to give. And you do have to have earned income. So I'm sorry to say, if you're retired and you have a pension and Social Security, that doesn't count, at least for tax purposes, as earned income. So you're not able to contribute to a Roth IRA. If you have a spouse that's working, though, you can, as their spouse, contribute to your own Roth IRA. And even if you're in retirement, you're beyond the point of actually making contributions, I encourage you to consider a Roth conversion. If you have money saved in a traditional IRA, you may want to look at converting part of that IRA over to a Roth IRA to take advantage of the tax-deferred growth. And I'm going to go over the differences about that in just a minute. As I mentioned earlier, if you're contributing to your retirement plan, increase your contributions as your income increases. So if you get a 3% raise, take 1% of that, 2% of that, and add it to your retirement account. And don't sacrifice your future for something today. I think one of the main points I took away from the autobiography of Warren Buffett is he learned at a very young age about looking at what he was spending today and what it would cost him in the future. And a simple way of looking at that is what we call the rule of 72. So in the examples of the friends that I shared, they earned an average of 8% on their investments. So you take 72 and you divide it by the percent that you're earning on your investments. In this example, 8%, which means that your money will double every 9 years. So if I spend $100 today, it means that if I had invested that money 9 years from now, it would be worth $200. 18 years from now, it would be worth $200. 27 years from now, it would be worth $400. So we want to take a look at how can we compound that. Actually, I take that back. I misspoke there. So $100, 9 years goes to $200, 9 years, 18 years goes to $400, 27 years, it goes to $800. And if you have long enough that you're going out another 9 years out, 36 years, now you're doubling it to $1,600. So you can see that that $100 expenditure today, if I have 36 years until retirement, is costing me $1,600 in the future. So you can make a better judgment call as to whether that want or desire today is worth sacrificing that money in the future. Now, when we talk about saving and ways of saving, I mentioned the difference between a 401k or a 403b or any employer retirement plan or an IRA versus a Roth IRA. And I want to highlight the reasons why I'm saying that a Roth IRA has a lot of advantages. When it comes to employer retirement accounts or an IRA, your contributions going in are tax deductible, or they come out of your payroll before taxes. They grow tax deferred, and then the distributions as they come out to you are taxed as income at that time. So you have control as to how much income you pay and when you pay it. Now, there is a 10% early withdrawal penalty if you take it before 59.5. There are some exceptions to that, but we're not going to go in that today. But also with a retirement account, even if you're saving it to eventually pass it on to the next generation, there are required minimum distributions. So thanks to the Secure Act 2.0 that was passed at the end of 2022, that retirement age is now age 73. So if you were born before 1960, then you have a required minimum distribution age of age 73, where you'll be required to start taking a percentage out of your IRA every year, whether you want it or not, just because Uncle Sam wants you to start paying tax on it. And if you're born after 1960, you get to wait until age 75. So you have a little bit longer for those required minimum distributions to kick in. Now, why would we talk about Roth IRAs as being so advantaged? Well, you don't get the tax advantage today, and that your contributions go in after tax, whether that's to a Roth 401k and you're paying tax through your paycheck first before it goes into the 401k, or you're making a contribution to that Roth IRA outside of your employer account. It grows tax deferred, just like the IRA. There's no tax on the growth or the interest or dividends that it earns on an annual basis. And the distributions come out of a Roth IRA completely tax-free after age 59 and a half, and that you've had that IRA for at least 5 years. Now, one of the key differences and why I encourage all younger investors to contribute to Roth IRAs if they're eligible is that contributions can come back out at any age without taxes or penalties. So if you put in that $6,000 into a Roth IRA in 2 years from now, you really have an emergency that you need that money back out, you can do that. You can't pull the growth or the earnings out, but you can pull your original $6,000 contribution back out without any penalties or interest. And if you're looking for a way to grow wealth to pass on to the next generation, to make a lasting impact, there are no minimum distributions with a Roth IRA. So if you're converting part of your IRA to a Roth IRA, it'll reduce the amount that you have to take out of your IRA as a minimum distribution, because there's no minimum distributions on the Roth side of things. So if you'd like to talk a little bit more about that, reach out to our office or email us at hello@hiwealth.com, and we'll make sure that we schedule a conversation to talk about your specific situation. Now, I'd like to take some time just to talk about investments in general. And I find that individuals, although they hear a lot on television and the news media, there's not a lot of financial education in our education system. So I'd like to just take a short few minutes to talk about investment basics. And I like to use my two daughters. This is Kelsey and Lindsay. And this was several years ago, back when they had a luscious lemonade stand. And so if they're creating a business and they want to expand their business, there are a couple of different ways that they can raise capital or raise money to grow their business. And that's besides coming to the Bank of Dad or any other bank. So when we look at investment basics, the first is that a company wanting to raise money could issue stock. And stock is a percentage interest in that company. So if Kelsey and Lindsay issued 100 shares of their lemonade stand, each share would be worth 1% of their company. And as a shareholder, you can get compensated one of two ways. One is that you could get a dividend so that as they have profits in the company, they could pay some of that out to the shareholders. Or you get a benefit in that as the company grows, the value of that stock goes up in value. Now, it's important to understand that with stock, there are no guarantees and that it could go to zero. If they lose interest in the lemonade stand, decide to go do something else, that stock could become worthless. And it's important to know that stock has a one-to-one relationship. There's one buyer for every seller. And so it's completely tied to supply and demand. So as people want to buy stock, the price may go up, or if there's a lot of people trying to sell it, the price may go down. Now, the other way of kind of raising capital for their business would be to issue a bond. And a bond is basically an IOU. A bond is saying, well, if you pay me $10,000, for the next 5 years, I'll pay you 5% interest or whatever their prevailing interest rate is for that 5 years. And at the end of the 5 years, if the business is still in business, I'll pay you the $10,000 back. So because a bond has a maturity value or a promise, at least from the company or government that's issuing the bonds, to pay that money back at a certain point in time, bonds tend to be less risky and have less fluctuation. However, there are different types of bonds and they will have different levels of risk. And I think 2022 was a perfect example of why that is. Because interest rates in the value bonds moves like a teeter-totter. When interest rates go up, the value of bonds goes down. And when the interest rate goes down, the value of bonds goes up. And why is that? Because if I buy a bond and it's paying me a 4% interest rate, and a new bond gets issued at 5%, If I want to sell my 4% bond, nobody really wants to buy it because they can go buy a new bond at 5%. So I have to lower the price of my bond so that the dividends, or that 4% dividend yield, is getting closer to a 5% yield on that new lower price. And what we see is when price and interest rates jump up like they did in 2022, the value, especially of long-term bonds, if you think about how far you are out on that teeter-totter, can move dramatically. It's one of the contributing factors for the Silicon Valley Bank going out of business. They lost almost $2 billion on their bond portfolio because they had long-term bonds that went down tremendously in value when interest rates went up. Now, beyond buying individual stocks or bonds in your investment portfolio, you can buy a mutual fund, which is a portfolio of stocks, bonds, or a combination of the both. And it can either be actively managed by a manager or a management team, or it can follow a market index where it's just buying a basket of stocks. Another way of buying kind of that basket of stocks, if you're following a market index, is through what's called an exchange traded fund. So these are ways that you can build a portfolio on investing. So you may be saying, well, okay, Greg, I now understand stocks, bonds, but really, how do I put that to work? And so I want to share some insights with you on money basics of investing. There are 3 simple rules of investing. One is that you should own equities or own stock. No matter your age, there should be part of your portfolio invested in the markets to be able to capture that long-term return, because it has proven over time to be one of the best ways to hedge against inflation and to grow over time. The other is that you should be diversified globally. When you look at all of the stock that's available in the world, the US makes up roughly around 52%. So if you're only investing in the United States, you're missing out on half of the stock that's available. So we should be diversified globally, as well as diversified in the size of the companies, as well as the type of stocks that we own. But we'll go into that at another Financial Power Hour coming up. And then once you have that diversified portfolio, it's important to monitor it and rebalance it. Because if you start out with a portfolio that's 50% stock and 50% bonds, and the market goes up, that 50% in stock grows to 55, 60%, and the amount of risk you have in your portfolio goes up. So in order to maintain the level of risk in your portfolio, it's important that that's reviewed on a systematic basis and rebalanced. Now, one of the ways that I like to think about a portfolio on what balance do you want to have between stocks and bonds is thinking about a sailboat. Now, a sailboat has sails to catch the wind, to propel it along. And so you can think about the sails as your equities or the stock, the exposure to stocks in your portfolio. Now, in a sailboat, there's also the keel, that board that sticks down under the water, and it's there for stability. And so think about the keel of your boat as your fixed income or bonds. So bonds ideally should not be part of the portion of your portfolio generating return. You should really be thinking of bonds as that stable part of your portfolio to provide stability. So if you're young or you really have an appetite for a lot of risk in your portfolio, you could have huge sails and a very small keel. Now, when you're out sailing on that boat, it's going to be swaying one way or the other based on the wind and what direction it's coming from. But if you are less risk averse, or actually more risk adverse, or want less risk in your portfolio, you may want a larger keel or more invested in bonds that will provide more stability. So when you're out there, you still have money in a sail to capture the wind to propel your portfolio forward, but you also have that keel adding stability. Those bonds as part of the portfolio to provide some stability. And certainly, again, as the portfolio goes on, we want to rebalance that on a systematic basis to maintain that balance between sales and keel to maintain the smooth sailing of your sailboat portfolio. So now that we know a little bit more about how to invest, what we're investing in, and what we might consider in putting a diversified portfolio together, I want to share with you just a few investing pitfalls, things that individuals commonly get wrong on investing. The first is that they're too conservative. There are rules of thumb out there that, well, you should take age 100 and subtract your age, and that's only the amount you should have invested in stock. I say phooey with that. Don't pay attention to that at all. It really comes down to that swan effect, that ability to sleep well at night. We know that statistically, a married couple is going to have a 72% chance of living to age 85 and almost a half or 45% living to age 90. So if you're retiring at 65, 67, or early at 55, you have a very long time frame ahead of you in retirement. So you want to make sure that your investments are going to grow with you as you age. Don't become too conservative that it doesn't keep up with inflation over time so that you find yourself having less money later in life. Now, the other thing is that we are human. We have emotions, and emotions, instincts, and perceptions influence the way that we think about our investing and can impact our portfolio. And here's a sample on how a person may feel through the roller coaster of the financial markets. When they make that investment in a portfolio or an investment that they are encouraged by, they start to get a little confidence as that portfolio grows in value. They get thrilled when it starts to really head up, and they're euphoric. And unfortunately, that tends to be when most investors tend to buy. They may have invested a little bit at the beginning, but then they start to buy in when they feel really comfortable. But then the market, true to form, has a little bit of a pullback. It may surprise you at first, but then you become a little bit nervous and then worried as it starts to steepen or accelerate. And when it really gets to a low point, then you hit that panic button and you sell, only to watch the market then start to recover. And what studies have shown is, looking over 3-year periods of time between 1993 and 2020, that those that kind of followed the herd, buying high and selling low, averaged a 3-year return of 5.5%. Now, if you had just purchased the Standard & Poor's 500 index and just let it ride for 3 years, you would have averaged in that time frame around a 10% return. So by buying high and selling low, you're underperforming a market index. However, those that went against the herd, when everybody was panicking, they went in and bought. They had the opportunity to actually exceed the market performance. They earned an average of 14.8% versus the 5.5%. And this is one of the reasons why firms out there, like Robinhood and other trading platforms, are able to offer you free trades, because they know that the majority of investors will most likely follow the herd. They'll buy high and sell low. So what do? They take those trades and they sell those trades to brokerage firms, earn revenue for their firm, because the buying firm knows that the average investor is underperforming the market. And that is why many firms are out there offering you free trades. And I encourage you to look at that, because nothing in this world is for free. Even firms like Vanguard and that offer extra low expense mutual funds, they're making money on your money. They're making more than just the management fee that they're charging to you, whether they're loaning the investments out and pocketing it themselves. There are ways that these firms are making money and offering you low rate trading or low rate investments. Now, a key for that, to avoid all of this, is to just stay invested. And as we look back at another example, that at a time frame of 20 years between 2001 and 2020, which was a very volatile 20 years, both with the dot-com technology bubble bursting in the beginning of that period and the Great Recession in 2008 to 2009, as well as leading into the pandemic in 2020, what we find is that if you had invested $100,000 in 2001, and in this case, we're just using the S&P 500 index for simplicity's sake, and you just let it ride for the next 20 years, your $100,000 through all those ups and downs, that heartache, stomach ache, and white knuckling, it would have more than quadrupled. It would have gone to just shy of $425,000. Now, if you missed just the top 5 days of trading, you would have seen your returns drop by 36.8%. That your $100,000 would have only grown to about $268,000 just by missing 5 days out of those 5,000 days. And the scary part is if you missed 25 days, less than 1 month out of that 20-year period, you would have actually lost money over that 20 years. Your $100,000 would have ended at $92,000. So it's important to know that investing in financial markets has risk, but you should develop a portfolio that provides you that sleep it well at night comfort. By diversifying, rebalancing regularly will allow you to weather through this and stay invested for the long term. So how can Hammond Iles help? Obviously, you are aware of our monthly financial power hours, whether you're joining us live or watching this video on YouTube. We offer these monthly financial power hours and record them and offer them out on our YouTube channel. So if there's someone that you think would benefit from seeing this video, I encourage you to pass along the link to the video on YouTube. You'll also find a variety of resources on the Hammond Iles website, whether that is taking a booklet that will help you organize your estate or think about your planning in the future. Those are all available for free on our website. And we continue to share other education pieces and tips and information through our social media. So I encourage you to follow, connect, or like us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, or YouTube. And you always have an opportunity for a free conversation with a financial coach at Hammond Iles. Just go to our website at hiwealth.com and you'll see a button in the top right corner to click on for that free conversation. So just to wrap up, I want to pause here to see if we have any questions. You can add those into the chat, and I'll be happy to answer them there or under the Q&A. Well, either I put you to sleep or it was so good you didn't have any idea, any questions from that. I did see one question about here about Ramsey's save 15% for retirement. I think that certainly is a decent amount. Ideally, I like the 50-30-20 rule. If you can get from 15 up to 20, you'll be that much better off. But getting on a path to 15 is a good path to be on as well. Also, the question about the 50-30-20 rule, is it based on pre-tax income with taxes being part of the 50%? Just for simplicity's sake, I would say no, it's after tax. So if you're looking at your take-home pay, so after my contribution that is what I want to look at, kind of the 50 and the 30. Now, certainly when we're looking at the retirement savings, because it does count towards that 20% in the 50, 30, 20, you may want to also be looking at the total when you're considering the 50, 30, 20 as a whole. So I just talked myself through that, in that basically you may want to look at it gross. Taxes would definitely be part of the needs of the 50%. So that may be easier if you're also looking at contributing to a retirement account. If you're beyond employment, then it can be looked at on an after-tax basis. So if you're just holding your Social Security and pension coming in, then you can be just looking at the cash flow coming in and how you should be dividing that. But when you do get later in life, you don't necessarily need to be reaching for that 20% savings. There still may be savings that you want to have to put aside for trips or specific lifestyle things that you want to save, but your level of saving may not necessarily need to be at that same level as pre-retirement. So great question, Carol. Thank you for that. Well, at this point, I don't see any other questions. As I mentioned, if you have any questions that weren't answered today, please feel free to email those to hello@hiwealth.com. And we thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us for our Financial Power Hour. At Hammond Iles Wealth Advisors, we are here to make a meaningful difference in people's lives. And the way that we go about doing that is awakening dreams and empowering investors across 3 generations to live a life of freedom and fulfillment. And we hope that by providing this information to you, you're able to have a clearer path to living a purposeful life. Thank you again for joining us.